Good morning, preppers. Happy prepping day to you. Time is short, and you'll see why in this video. Stick with us, because some of the things we'll see in here will definitely open your eyes if you haven't already thought about this before, which I know some of you have. Let's talk about governments. Not just the United States, but governments overall will often pass legislation, pass laws, or executive orders that have, well, you know what, hidden agendas. I'm going to go ahead and use that term. Nefarious agendas that tries to keep it from the people of the country because, well, you know what governments want? They want control. They want power. They want to be able to have power over the people. Again, not just the United States, but just overall, governments like to have power. You'll never see a government get power, especially through legislation, then when the crisis is over, really go sit back and say, okay, we're good. They don't do that. So some of the things that are actually happening are going to be very detrimental to us in the United States, especially very soon. And it's already been implemented. It's already underway. And let's go ahead and look at our first article. I want to show you what we're looking at here. Number one, is the U.S. going to launch a CBDC? A CBDC is a central bank digital currency instead of actually using the good old greenback dollar bill, which I say that tongue in cheek. It says rumors and in many cases fears have risen against the United States with a central bank currency called a Fed coin. What is it? Do we have one now? No, we don't have one now. But keep going. Look what it says. While the U.S. CBDC has been a topic of speculation in crypto circles for years, the real path began with Biden's March 2022 executive order. And for people who really study this, they know about this executive order, but I don't know how many of you actually see this executive order. Here it is right here. The executive order talks about how they are implementing and starting the process to make a central bank digital currency. All right, so much wording here and so much stuff, the objectives and everything, but they can go ahead and talk about their objectives all they want to. Again, remember, because we're talking about nefarious, we're talking about hidden agendas. I'm going to scroll all the way down to section 7. I want you to see this. This is very interesting. There's section 6. Oh, I skipped it. Section 7. Actions to limit illicit financial and associated national security risks. Digital assets have facilitated sophisticated cybercrime-related financial networks and activity, including ransomware. Okay, which is true. The growing use of digital assets and financial activity heightens risk of crimes such as money laundering, terrorist, and proliferation financing, fraud and theft schemes, and corruption. These illicit activities highlight the need for ongoing scrutiny of the use of digital assets, the extent to which technology innovation may impact such activities, and exploration of opportunities to mitigate these risks through regulation, supervision, private-public engagement, oversight, and law enforcement. All right, it talks about here within 90 days of submission, there's all kinds of different things like Homeland Security gets involved, national intelligence gets involved, et cetera, talking about all the different types of cyber currency. Now, this is interesting because if you think about this, what they're doing is saying, oh, look, executive order. This is not simply saying, oh, we're thinking about, digital currency. We're starting digital currency. But on the same note, they actually talk about how digital currencies, like Bitcoin, for example, already pose problems because it's actually asking for problems with the currency, like fraud, or somebody stealing money, or, or situations where they simply want to have power over you, financially speaking. Let's not even get into if we go to a digital currency, for the fact that every single house and every single person on the planet has to have access to the internet to be able to exchange digitally. And could you even imagine, hypothetical here, could you imagine our whole country's now on digital and we get hit by an EMP? There's no more money. There's nothing like that. We're screwed because we're looking at least a year before retail starts opening back up again, probably more. And could you imagine those situations? And I mean, I could imagine it because I could easily see the government saying, oh, guys, look, we didn't see this one coming. So we're going to go ahead and set it up so you can register with us. And now you can actually get food through us instead of buying it like we're supposed to. That's how it is in a free market society, or at least in a society that's supposed to be a free market. So when we talk about terrorism, we talk about things like where Biden said anybody who is MAGA for Trump is an extremist. In other words, an AKA terrorist. That's how I hear it, by the way. And I don't care if you love Trump. I don't care if you hate Trump. I don't care if you're off on the road, on the fence. I don't care. But when they actually start talking about certain population of the country, like a third of the population at least, calling them extremist, aka terrorist, I could easily see these people being put on a watch list. Or you know what? Not be able to actually exchange currency because they're not doing things the way this administration wants it to go. Do you understand the very slippery slope, the dangerous path we're heading down with this? Oh, but wait, there's more. Next article. This is from the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, the U.S. dollar and central bank digital currencies. And basically, it's a very interesting article. And in this article, they talk about how, look, the role of the U.S. dollar after World War II and the creation of the Bretton Woods system, the U.S. dollar is the central currency for international monetary systems, without a doubt. By any measure, it is the dominant global currency for funding markets, foreign exchange transactions, invoicing. It is the world's predominant reserve currency. Up to 60% or more foreign reserves are actually held by the U.S. dollar. So what does that mean? Everywhere I traveled around the world, it didn't matter what country you were in, we could actually use dollars and buy things. And granted, there was like a lot of little mom and pop shops who would say, you know, we want you to have whatever currency that was at that time. But the dollar still remained golden, so to speak, as far as being the currency that could be used practically everywhere. And there's a group of people in this country, a big chunk of people that actually align with Biden, that hate for the fact that the United States stands, number one, as the dominant country in the world as far as finances go, but also as the country that holds the monetary system that the world uses. Because in the United States, there's a lot of us, especially including myself, that I love the United States being separate, being our own country with solid borders that make it so we actually have our own individualism. And that includes immigration too, obviously, because the majority of the Americans by far are from immigration, the correct way, mind you. But we actually have our own flavors, even like different cities have their own flavors, and we have our own distinctiveness. And this distinctiveness has actually led the world in so many things. And there's people in this country who hate this. And that number of people who hate this is growing. More and more people hate the American way, hate the American system, and they want nothing more to make simply just America another country in a League of Nations per se. Sounds kind of nefarious and kind of familiar. Sounds like World Economic Forum type stuff. And that's exactly what's happening. So when we talk about a digital currency, we aren't simply just talking about, oh, you know what? We want to stabilize stuff. We don't want to simply just make it so it's easier to transact. No, it's about control. And it's very clear in that executive order that basically anybody who's deemed as a terrorist who goes against the system cannot use digital currency. We're already seeing this in other countries who have digital currency. They're cutting them off. You don't do what they want, you are cut off, and you will not be able to buy or sell anything. So where is this leading to? Are we talking about the United States actually being shifted into more of a global currency? Well, let's take a look at this last article. Talk of a EU-style governance with Americans raises red flags with the congressman. So good for you, congressman. This article just came out yesterday. Mexico's president said that the U.S. has been discussing with the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken the possibility of merging the American continent into a EU style of governance. Mr. Blinken talked about consolidating the North America region, and we agreed on that, said the president of Mexico. Okay, so I don't know if you saw this. But in other words, like the European Union, instead of actually having individual countries with their own individual financial system, have now conglomerated, as you know, you probably know this, into a European Union. Well, they're trying to do the same thing here in North America. And listen, if they get America past that threshold, if they get the United States past that threshold in being part of a North American Union, then what's stopping them from taking the next step into making a global union? You know nothing, because that first step is going to be the hardest by far. So what is our little friend Blinken talking about? Not only did I tell him we're in agreement, et cetera, but more, if you scroll down, look at this. Our office is actively monitoring the Biden administration's plans and will continue to communicate our concerns with the State Department. Wait a second. We're not talking about speculation. Are we putting the United States into a European Union style agreement between Mexico and Canada? And don't get me wrong, I love Mexico and Canada, but the United States is the United States. We're our own country. Canada is their own country. Mexico is their own country. But they already have plans of doing this. They already have plans of connecting us. I don't remember voting on this. And granted, I understand we actually are supposed to have representation where we vote people who represent us to make those decisions for us. But this has not been hitting mainstream media. This has not been hitting the news that basically, oh, by the way, guys, we're now going to be looking at connecting a European Union, a North American Union. And that North American Union, by the way, is not going to be using the dollar as the basis. It's going to be using a brand new central bank digital currency. So that's their plans. Their plans are to bring down these walls. Oh, wait, the walls are already down anyway as we see a flood of immigration come to the United States. And I'm not going to get into that discussion because that's a whole new video on its own. But I want you to understand what's coming. And again, if you and me ruffle the feathers, go against their system, then they're going to cut us off and there's no more buying or selling for us. Think about that. That is their plans. It even says that right in their own executive order documentation. So obviously we need to prep. We need to stockpile. But I always say you need to stockpile and prep in items that are tangible that you can trade and barter, because the government may shut you off financially and they may or may not arrest you. But if you're shut off financially, you have to be able to get food, and hopefully you'll have some neighbors you can barter with and get some food at that time, because you know what? All the things that basically are pushing down our throats is coming. They're just not letting us know it's going down our throats. They're keeping us blindfolded while they do it. So scary times ahead. That's why we need to prep and continue to stick together, especially us preppers, because we will become public enemy number one. And when that time comes, we won't be able to buy or sell.